I accidentally created a DILF that all of my subscribers are interested in. But I mean, it's fine. I suspected everyone was going to simp for every single character in this new story, so thank you for proving me right. Anyways, I hope you are all ready to learn about our resident DILF, I guess, Sylvester. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I posted a video. It's been a hot minute. If you missed my video explaining my situation and my update, the long story short is I moved. So right off the bat, I am going to say I am sorry if the room seems a little echoey. I don't have anything on my walls at the moment, so it'll be a little echoey. I apologize. Can't exactly put stuff on the wall because there are some leaks in the house that we gotta get fixed and we don't know where they gotta open the wall in, but it's a whole thing. But I'm back, hello. If you want to know a little bit more context, feel free to go and watch my last two uploads, but we're doing some catch up. My favorite condiment. Gonna be talking about Sylvester because you were supposed to learn about him last month. In case you missed it, he is the third character out of 6 that I am talking about for this new story that I've been working on. The other 2 are Ellie and Ash, so if you missed those, go watch those before watching this one, because I'm going to be talking as if you had seen those ones and you know what I'm talking about. I was on the fence about how you guys would feel about Sylvester. I thought that there would be like a very specific group of people who would think that he is so incredibly hot, and then I posted him to Instagram and you all thought he was really hot, so there we go, you're welcome, I guess. But here's Sylvester. I'm sure you're all eager to learn about him. He is one of 2 characters in the story who does not have a last name, and we'll get into why in a little bit. So you all know him as Sylvester, and that's how the world knows him. We also don't know how old he is. Again, we'll get into it later. A lot of the stuff that was usually be at the beginning of the video is going to be explained a little later. Just hang in there, guys. But he uses he, him pronouns, and normally at this point in the video, I would say if someone's introverted, extroverted, or ambivert, and in my notes, I wrote ambivert with a question mark. Honestly, no 3 of those options really fit him. Once I get into it a little bit more, you'll probably see what I'm talking about, but he tends to keep to himself while also at the same time being a little bit of a people pleaser, I guess. But we'll get to that. Anyways, moving on. If there's one word that sums up Sylvester in a nutshell, it's mysterious. No one really knows anything about him. No one really knows what he's thinking. No one really knows what he's plotting. That sounds very menacing and ominous, but it's true. Nobody really knows what life was like before his current life. Just, he's an enigma. Is that the right word is that the right use of enigma? I don't know, I'm going to pretend it is and move on. Sylvester seems to be very calm and very collected all of the time, even in situations where he probably shouldn't be. There are situations where he should be upset or angry or flustered or surprised, but he's just, he has that calm, collected attitude practically 24/7. Sylvester talks often about doing his job, and he will do whatever it takes to complete that job. I'll get into exactly what that is in a minute, but he's very, work-oriented. We'll put it that way for now. But one thing that I personally love about Sylvester is that he is extremely blunt, like all of the time. And he never really means to offend people, but he just does. He is not the type to sugarcoat it at all, but he's also not the type to exaggerate. He just kind of says things how they are, which tends to some people being a little upset with him sometimes if he says something about them. I'm sure you can imagine how that goes with the rest of the cast members you know of so far. And on the outside, he just seems very polite and friendly and well-mannered, but honestly, once you get to know him, he seems almost emotionless. Like, all of that, like, politeness and friendliness and having good mannerisms is just a front, because he never really does emote other than, like, those pleasantry type things. So to strangers, he seems like, oh, look at that nice gentleman, what a lovely lad. But then for people who know him a little bit better, they seem very confused, sometimes slightly concerned, or even just straight up put off by how odd his behavior can be. He still keeps up that polite, friendly front, I guess we'll call it, to everyone, so regardless of whether or not you're someone he knows, he still acts that way. It's just that whether or not you know him on a personal level, people's reactions to that tend to be a little different. Yeah, that's him. He's interesting. It's so hard talking about characters that are supposed to be mysterious and you don't know a lot about, because these videos are all about the characters. So like with Ellie and Ash, it's like, here's them, here's their personalities, here's their habits and all of those fun little quirks about them, and then with Sylvester, it's like, no one knows what the fuck is going on with him. Enjoy. But anywho, quick summary of the story for anybody who needs it. By the way, this is your last chance. If you haven't seen Ellie and Ash's videos, go watch those first. Thank you. They live in a universe where there is the magical realm and the non-magical realm. And then there are what I've been calling them gates, which separate both realms. The magical realm, their goal is basically to take over the non-magical realm and cause a whole fuck ton of mayhem in there. So obviously the non-magical realm is like, we can't let that happen. And so they have guardians who protect those gates, except the last guardians didn't exactly do a good job at that, and so now the magical realm is seeping into the non-magical realm, and shit's going crazy. When all of this becomes a graphic novel in like 20 years or something, that's exactly how I'm going to describe it on the back of the book. I'm kidding, unless I'm not. So the previous two characters I talked about were Ellie and Ash, in case you couldn't gather that from my channel and also this video. They are the only two beings in the non-magical realm to use magic, but also that said, Sylvester is a magic user, and he has water powers very similar to Ellie's. And the reason for that, some of you were kind of confused when I shared him on Instagram, he's not actually from the non-magical realm. He is from the magical realm. And also, he's not technically human. He has another form that nobody really sees. Honestly, even Ellie and Ash have only gotten glimpses of it before, but he just presents himself as a human to blend in with the non-magical realm a little bit easier. And also, that said, that is why we don't really know his age, and that's why Sylvester is just Sylvester. It's not even his real name, it's kind of a name he picked, again, to fit in with the non-magical realm a little more. And the reason he has the same powers as Ellie is because he's actually Ellie's mentor. Ellie has known him literally her entire life, and he is the one who sort of guides her and teaches her how to use her powers. And he is also the mentor of all of the past guardians with water powers, so he has been around practically since the beginning of time, so get yourself a DILF who's several centuries old. He is also Ellie's power source in a way. I'm gonna do my best to explain this, but we all know I'm not great at that, so just bear with me for a minute. In both Ellie and Ash's videos, I talked about, depending on how charged up their gems are, the more powerful or not powerful they are. And I also said that while at 100% power, they would be practically unstoppable. It's not really practical to have it at 100% all of the time, and this is why. For those of you with basic levels of observation, I was going to say great levels of observation, but it's not. It's really basic. He has the same gem as Ellie. He does use the gem to sort of share powers with Ellie, and that's how her magic works. So the more charged up Ellie's gem is, the less charged up Sylvester's is. So essentially, he uses the gems as a way to transfer power from himself to Ellie. And that's why it's not practical for Ash and Ellie to have their gems charged up at 100% all of the time, because if it is, then that would leave Sylvester, and I'm assuming you all figured out Ash also has a mentor. It would leave them completely defenseless and honestly a lot weaker. Not even just magically wise, just like on a physical level. Like physically they would get like more weak and... Is weary the right word to use? They would get a lot weaker. Because since he isn't a human and he is from the magical realm, magic is a form of life source for him. Like if Ellie had her gem at 100%, it wouldn't kill Sylvester, but he would definitely be too weak to do a lot of stuff. Because they do have that shared power source, it's really rare that either of them can really fight to their full potential. So yeah, that's one mystery solved. I hope I explained that well enough. And in Ellie's video, I vaguely mentioned someone who I referred to as a business partner. Sylvester is said business partner because he is her mentor in a way. They do work together on a lot of stuff. They have in the past, and they will continue to work together on many things. And Sylvester very much treats Ellie like the boss, even if that's not exactly how their dynamic works. He treats her more as the boss, mostly because of who he is as a person, I guess. When it comes to like their actual dynamic, I would say that Ellie relies on Sylvester a lot more than Sylvester relies on Ellie. And so if anything, Sylvester should be viewed as like the one in charge, but really he tends to follow Ellie's lead. And he's also on friendly terms with the rest of the cast members, since he is that like calm and collected person. He doesn't really argue with people. He doesn't have any enemies that we know of at this point. Really, the one thing that people tend to know about him is his ambitions to close the gates. I'm sure you've all figured that out by now since he does work with Ellie, and that's like her whole thing. Closing the gates is kind of his whole thing. And you may be asking, is that the job he wants to complete? Yes and no. It's definitely one of them, but he seems to have this other job he doesn't talk about. This is what I mean when it's hard to talk about mysterious characters. He has a lot of motives that people don't know about. They just know that there's something, but he never talks about it. And so I can't talk about it because spoilers. But it's fine. Who doesn't love a lot of mystery? So between closing the gates to the magical realm and this other mysterious job he has, no one really understands a lot of the stuff that he says or does. I mean, Ellie understands them to an extent, but even though she has known him all her life, and even though he is her mentor, there's still a lot that even she doesn't really get about him. Even though the rest of the cast do view him fondly, they're still pretty confused by him. And that's about all I have for Sylvester and his personality and the like. Because I sense these two questions coming, I will answer them now. If he is from the magical realm, why is he helping the people in the non-magical realm? And also, if he is from the magical realm, why isn't he in charge of guarding the gates? And I have to say, it's secret plot stuff. So those questions are just gonna remain unanswered for you, but I promise one day you will know the answer. That day is just not today. So with that said, it's time to move into the Q&A section, everybody's favorite part. I love these because it makes me learn a little bit more of how you view my characters, which so far in this story it's been, can I marry them please? And Sylvester is no exception, so. We'll start off with the traditional questions. He doesn't have a birthday, so yeah. But kind of like Ash, where it just made sense for him to be a Leo, I kind of imagine Sylvester being a Gemini. Again, not that I know anything about horoscopes. I know fuck all about the different zodiac signs and their assigned traits, but in my mind it just makes sense. Does he prefer ice cream cake or cookie cake? He just prefers regular cake, but also like fancy ass cake. No special flavor, just something that looks really, really sophisticated. And lastly, use a vine to describe him.
I'm over 72, and I feel great.
Moving on from those, why is he so calm? Is it a front or is he just vibing? A little bit of both, I guess. I guess the best way I can put it is that being calm and collected and borderline emotionless is a part of the job description, not his mentoring job description, his other mysterious job description. So, you know, does he feel emotions? Is he suppressing emotions? Who knows? I know, but I'm not gonna tell you. Is he good with children? Honestly, just like anybody from children to the elderly, he's somehow simultaneously good and bad with people. When it comes to strangers, I would say he's very good with people. He always seems to know, like, what to say, what to do, how to be nice to people, how to get people on his side and make them like him. But then when it comes to the intricacies of maintaining, like, friendships and stuff like that, he's really bad at that because of his lack of emotion. So I guess to put it in a more simple way, he's fake as fuck. But it's not that he has bad intentions, it's that, you know, when it comes to getting close to someone, you tend to be open about emotions and you talk about things, and even when things get a little heated, like if someone were to get in an argument, like there's a lot of emotions involved, and he doesn't really get that because he is so emotionless. And so in situations like that, he can just irritate people and add fuel to the fire, I guess. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I hope it did. Does he call everyone darling, lady, lad, etc.? It's funny that I got this comment because kind of. He doesn't really use lad or darling, but he does refer to like every woman as like lady and then name, and then for men it's sir and then name. I haven't quite figured out how he'd address non-binary people, but leave your suggestions in the comments down below, I guess. But he also doesn't do nicknames. Even if you ask him to call you by a nickname, he probably won't. So with Ellie and Ash, it's Lady Eleanor and Sir Ashley. Ellie prefers it that way, Ash most definitely does not. Is he capable of hurting / killing another human being? Absolutely. Bold of you to assume he hasn't already. So I guess he is very much a character where the end justifies the means is like his motto. Like I said, the main goal in his life is to do his jobs. He will do practically anything, or not even practically, he will do anything to get those done. And honestly, the only reason he probably isn't a villain and he's a protagonist is because of the other cast members. They keep him from going to the dark side, let's say. And because of them, he tends to have a little more common sense, not necessarily because he isn't willing to do bad, but more of it's in his best interest to have everyone on his side, I guess. The more I talk about him, the more and more he's sounding like a sociopath. And like, he might be, but he's hot, so who cares? And with that, I feel like I described all of anime in a nutshell. What is his relationship with Ellie and Ash, and does he tease them a lot? Like I said, he has known Ellie all of her life, and by extension has known Ash all of his life, and he did practically help raise them. More specifically Ellie, but Ash did grow up with him around, and they have had a similar relationship to how Ellie is with him. And he teases them in his own weird way. It's not like your typical teasing and stuff, it's more of just like insults, I guess. Like with Ellie, if something happens, he might just be like, oh, well, no wonder that happened, because you're really socially inept. And like, just stuff like that. They never take it personally because since they have known him all of their lives, they kind of know how he functions, so it never hurts emotionally, but you know, they are both short-tempered and hot-headed, so not exactly calm about it either. Is he put off by Ellie's cold persona? Not necessarily. In Ellie's video, I did talk about how she was different as a kid. He does know what she was like as a kid and what caused her to be the way that she is now. Honestly, other people, when they see their dynamic, think there are times where he should not put up with it and he should be upset with her, but he isn't. And that's mixed because of how he operates and also because he knows practically everything there is to know about Ellie. So many people want to know, what's his sexuality? Is he single? Everyone is like, I want this DILF to step on me. So here's the answer to that. First of all, yes, he is single. All of the characters in the story are single. And his sexuality, he is asexual, but he's willing, if you know what I mean. And also, you might be wondering if he's aromantic. There is an answer to that question, but it is not an answer I will give at this moment, so I will just leave that up in the air. You know, I'm not saying he's aromantic, but I am saying that he feels no emotions and also has never felt romance before. So, will he or will he not? It'll be a surprise. Are his powers different from Ellie's? Not really, in terms of, like, what they're capable of. It's all about the same, but since Sylvester has existed, I don't know, since, like, the beginning of time or whatever, he is a lot more experienced than Ellie is in terms of using their powers, so in that way, he's a lot more skilled, and he uses their powers in a way that's a little bit more creative than Ellie, I guess. Like, he's a lot good at problem solving when it comes to using magic. So their abilities are about the same, and then how powerful they are depends on the gem, but he's a lot better at using their powers. How tall is he? He doesn't have an exact height, but I imagine him to be about 6 feet or taller, so he's pretty tall. He is the tallest cast member out of all of these characters. Why does he have 2 gems? Honestly, it's less for like story purposes and practical purposes, and I guess a meta-narrative reason is the best way I can explain it. I wanted him to feel different from the rest of the characters. So we've got 6 characters, right? 2 of them are non-magic users, as I'm sure you could probably figure out. And then we have Ellie and Ash, who are magic users. And then we have Sylvester and then Ash's mentor, who are both magic users. Between the 4 people who do use magic, Sylvester is very different for a lot of reasons, so I just wanted him to feel different, and by giving him 2 gems, that was one way that I was able to do that. Maybe I'll find like a story purpose for it, but for the most part, it's more just to help you get the vibe that he's not quite the same as everybody else. Even though I'm sure you could probably already gather that, but this is just a little cherry on top. Is he a cat or a dog person? To tell you the truth, he's not really an animal person. He doesn't dislike animals, but he's just very indifferent about them. That said, if you had to pick between them, it would probably be cats, because cats tend to keep to themselves, and personality-wise, I guess he is like a cat in some ways. You know how cats are like, they're just off doing their own thing, and they're a lot more independent compared to dogs? It's kind of like him, but again, he doesn't really I was gonna say he doesn't really care for animals. He's indifferent about them. Is he manipulate, mansplain, male wife, or something else? Definitely manipulate, maybe a little bit of male wife sprinkled in there. Where did you get inspiration for him? Fun fact about him, he was the second hardest character out of all of these to design. I really struggled with nailing down the details for him. But that said, a lot of his physical design is based off of the personality I decided to give him. So everything that I told you about him in terms of his character, like his personality and his goals and all of that, I thought that that type of character would really suit Ellie's mentor, and based off of those personality traits and background that he has, I just kind of was drawn to this type of design. But also, that said, this isn't something that I draw super often. I don't draw a lot of like fancy looking people, or at least not nearly as fancy as him, so I really had a hard time nailing down all of those details. But gentlemanly dude and water, so those are the two main things, and also older, hence why he became a DILF. Would he be polite just to get something from you? 100%. Again, I guess you could say being polite is in the job description. I guess you could say being polite to get what he wants is entirely his character. Like, honestly, that's a sentence that sums him up pretty well. And lastly, if he woke up in an unfamiliar place and was stranded there, could he escape? He absolutely could, and honestly, I fear for what Sylvester is capable of when left to his own devices. And there we go. That's all the questions that I have that you guys have had. A lot of you guys were really excited to learn about Sylvester, and I'm really happy about that. I feel like he's very different from a lot of the characters that I draw, design, and write, so I was really excited to share him with you, but also kind of nervous because he is pretty different, but I'm really happy that you guys are liking him. That's cool. Again, in case you missed my last two uploads, I am going to be posting another one of these OC videos next week. It is, I'm sure you can probably guess, it is going to be of Ash's mentor, so if you are excited to see them, feel free to stick around. Not only did I miss a character video last month because of everything that was happening in my life, I also think that making these character videos is a great way for me to get back into making content, since they're a lot easier for me to make compared to other videos, so I hope you don't mind too much. I know statistically speaking, they are some of my least popular content, but I know the people who love them really love them, so I hope you guys will stick around for next week. Yeah, I've been talking way too long and I'm beginning to forget how to film a video, so I'm just going to end it here. If you liked Sylvester, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any other questions about him, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. I won't answer any questions I feel I answered in this video already, or anything that will be spoilery for their story, so just keep that in mind, but I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. And if you are new here, this is kind of an awkward video for you to have be my first video for you, but hi, I'm Oliver. I post a new video every single Wednesday. Consider subscribing. I post a lot of my OCs on here. I talk about my stories a lot. I do sketch vlogs, traditional speed paints, digital speed paints, whatever I really feel like doing. So if any of that is interesting to you, feel free to stick around. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to see more from me, you can follow me on social media. Those will be on screen now and linked in the description box below. And I will also have my Ko-fi page linked in the description box below. It would really help me and my family out if you could give $1 or $2. But if not, no biggie. And there will be some videos on screen now and linked in the iCard for you to check out if you want. Again, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.